Settle down and get this party started. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, welcome everybody. You know, every week it seems like somebody comes up to me and always asks me, they say, is this an anniversary meeting? And I'm like, no, we do this every week. And it makes it a lot of fun. You guys make a lot of fun being here. Hopefully you enjoy yourself and come back next week. Luli's going to take over. And let's go.
Hello everyone, welcome to the party. This is welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Luli and I'm an alcoholic. So this is a 1-hour speaker meeting. It meets here every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church at 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The purpose of the group is to provide a message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, just simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Yes?
My name's Matt. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Matt. Welcome. Yes?
Andrew, alcoholic.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome.
Brian, alcoholic.
Hey, Brian. Welcome. Hi, Irene. Welcome.
Anthony, alcoholic.
Hey, Anthony. Welcome to the group. Yes. Hey, Andrew. Welcome. Hey, Andrew. Welcome to the group. Yes? Hey, Ray. Nice to see you here. Anybody else? Hey, Jake. Nice to see you.
Hey, Mike, alcoholic.
Hey, Mike. How are you? Anybody else? Yes. Hi, Erica. Welcome. Anybody else? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. So would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Okay, so if you don't have a sponsor, please see one of these folks after the meeting. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? No. Okay. So we have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you can't afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of these books and CDs to help those who can't afford them, please put your donations in the back in the jar over there. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, please see Ron after the meeting. They're available free of charge, and there's a pretty wide selection of them. And now I've asked Anthony to come up and read the AA preamble.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked Joe to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
My name's Joe. I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So we have a 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, but there are expenses such as the coffee, all of the food, the rent, big books, and CDs. And there's absolutely no smoking on church property. We've had a big problem with this, so please, please, no smoking on church property. And this would be a good time to silence all cell phones, and please limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. So it gives us great pleasure now to introduce our speaker. He's here from Alexandria, Virginia, and his home group is the Hope is Here group. Please give a great big welcome to Dave D.
Thank you. My name is David Duncan. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. Ron, thank you for asking me to come up and do this. It's an honor and a pleasure to be asked to do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. Am I okay with the microphone? You want a little bit? Relax.
Get our money's worth.
All right. There we go. And we're good? Okay. We're good. Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you, my beautiful and most wonderful fiancée, Elaine, for coming with me. We had a beautiful drive up here, and we're staying at the Plumsteadsville Inn, and just love it. What a beautiful day, and what a great way to enjoy this gift of sobriety. And thank you guys for being here. And my first sponsor that I ever really got, he straightened me out on something right off of the bat. He looked at me and said, "You know, there's something you need to know, Dave." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "You need Alcoholics Anonymous a lot more than AA needs you." I don't know how he could tell that's what I was thinking, but he could tell, and he straightened me out, and I didn't understand at the time, but I understand today because, you know, if we had card broken down, something did actually happen. I was supposed to come up earlier this year, and something happened, and I couldn't come, so I appreciate being invited back. But if for some reason I couldn't make it tonight, there's 100 people in this room. Somebody would get up and tell their story. You guys would have a meeting. You wouldn't go, "Oh, Dave's not here. The meeting's canceled," right? But if you guys hadn't come tonight, I wouldn't have got a meeting. So I need Alcoholics Anonymous a lot more than Alcoholics Anonymous needs me. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be asked to speak for a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a sobriety date. It's January 24th, 1989. For that, I am truly grateful. It's really not all that impressive. All it means is that I have now officially been sober 27 years longer than I meant to be. I did not show up ready to sign up for the 27-year plan. I wanted 6 months to do 6 months, get my stuff together, and be on my way. Thank you very much. I mean, I really, at the time, I wasn't even an alcoholic when I came to AA. Apparently, you become an alcoholic by going to too many meetings. Because I wasn't an alcoholic when I got here, and now I have a very severe case of alcoholism. But I wasn't even an alcoholic. And I hear people tell their stories, and they say, you know, when they walked into AA, they felt like they were home, like they'd finally arrived, you know. And God bless, I think that's fantastic if that's your story. I walked in going, "Oh God, not this." Let me just do the time, you know, like not AA. I mean, it was just, I was 20 years old, and I was not, you know, people would say, "Oh, you're so lucky you got here so young." I didn't feel lucky to be in a meeting of AA, you know what I mean? I was 20, and the only thing more uncool than being a member of AA was being a sober member of AA. And I mean, it just, I wasn't excited about this wonderful new opportunity that had been presented to me. So if you're new here tonight, and you're not absolutely ecstatically enthralled that you're here in an AA meeting on a Saturday night, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I wasn't either, although it was a Monday night meeting. Funny, when I got to AA, the only thing I wanted to do was get out of AA. And now that I'm here in AA, I want more than anything to be able to stay in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if you've been around here at all, and any of us who are alcoholics out there know how hard it is to get in the door of AA. And you know what's harder than getting in the door of AA? Staying in AA. Because if staying wasn't harder than getting here, there wouldn't be 100 people at this meeting tonight. There would be 1,000 people at this meeting tonight. And worldwide AA's numbers wouldn't be almost 3 million, it would be almost 30 million. But I've had the benefit of very narrow-minded sponsors who loved me more and had more sense for me than I had for myself, giving me guidance along the way. So I'm very grateful that I have this sobriety date and that's it. I also have a home group. It's Hope is Here in Old Town Alexandria, down there towards DC. Tuesday nights at 8:30 standard drunk time. And it's an open meeting too. If you're ever in the area, please come by and visit us. I grew up with a normal family. My mother they're still two of the best parents that I know, and I have been a parent for a while now. Two of the best parents that I know. I had everything I ever needed. I had almost everything I ever wanted. It was a little bit Leave It to Beaver, suburban childhood. You know, we come from all kinds of different stories and different backgrounds. You know, Yale and jail. It's funny. I have a friend who's now sober in our program like 10 years now, and he actually went to Yale. So, you know, he always laughs when the Yale or jail thing. He actually went to Yale. But we come from all these different backgrounds, and, you know, I didn't come from broken household, military family, alcoholic family. Until my brother this November is celebrating 4 years of continuous sobriety, but up until that point, I'm the only alcoholic that I know of in my family. So I always used to say, if there's anything dysfunctional about my family, I was the dys in the dysfunction. You know, they're good people. I don't have anything. The only reason, if you got to go like, why am I an alcoholic? The only reason I can figure out is I love booze. I love booze. I just love it. I love my first drunk was Bacardi 151 and Country Time lemonade mix with my friend Mike over at Mike's house. He mixed it up in a Tupperware bowl and started passing it around and drinking that. And I love Bacardi 151 and Country Time lemonade mix. I love vodka. I love Southern Comfort. I love grain shots. You know, I love Lowenbrows. I love Mooseheads. I love Coors. I love Budweiser. I love Bud Light. I love Warm Schaefer Light. I love Mad Dog 2020. I love, you know, wine coolers in a can, and yes, they make them in a can. And, you know, when I first started drinking, I could turn my nose up at stuff, but you just get right on past that. I mean, you just work your way right through that, and you take whatever it does to do the trick. And the only reason, if there has to be a reason that I'm an alcoholic, is that I love booze. Booze has that effect on me. The effect that it doesn't have on the non-alcoholic, it has on me. See? So I could pretty much sum up my drinking pretty simply. There was an old timer from Virginia that used to say, when I started drinking, I had this much fun and this much problems. And when I finished drinking, I had this much problems and this much fun, you know. And I just drank until all the fun was gone. And then I drank a little bit more, you know. And at the beginning, booze worked really, really well for me. I drank to feel good, and it made me feel good. And it worked really well. And then as I began to lie and manipulate and do the, you know, betray trusts and do the things that against my own moral code. I wasn't raised by a pack of wolves. I was raised right. And as I began to do things that I knew inside were wrong and experience these things, I took on these roommates as I was drinking. You know, they were called guilt and shame, you know, but they were kind of like on the rent-to-own plan, you know. It was like they didn't like take up the whole residence in the house. At the beginning, they just took up a drawer, you know, and then all of a sudden they had the whole dresser, and then they were just living there with me all the time, guilt and shame. And as those guys began to move in, I drank to not feel bad, and booze worked really, really well. It made me not feel bad. And at the end of my heaviest drinking, what I drank for, what I got out of the bottle, was absolutely nothing. I drank to go to the blank spot. I drank so that you don't feel, you don't think, and you don't exist. And that's what I drank for, and booze worked very, very well. It made everything go away. And that's really what I wanted, because the pain of sobriety became greater than the pain of getting drunk. Matter of fact, the only thing I ever found wrong with getting drunk was you got to get sober again. Right? Everything was going to be okay when I was drunk, but eventually you're going to sober up again, and then everything's not okay. Right? And that was a problem. So I drank as often and as much as I could. And see, I believed to my innermost self, since I sat down at a picnic bench when I was 3 years sober, sat down at a picnic bench with a sponsor, and he started taking me through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we read the definition of what an alcoholic is according to AA. Ever since that day, there has not been a shred of doubt in my mind that I am the garden variety alcoholic that's described in that book. But when I got here, I had a little definition problem. You guys would say, do you believe you're an alcoholic? And what you meant when you said that was, do you believe that you have a physical allergy whereby whenever you put alcohol in your body, for whatever reason, you develop this phenomena of craving, and you really have no choice left, you have no willpower, no choice left in taking another drink. And also, you have this mental obsession. It means when you're not drinking, you're thinking about drinking. And you have a mind that will always lead you back to drinking. That's what you meant. And you would say, do you believe you're an alcoholic? And I, in all complete honesty, would say no. Because what I meant when I said no was, I never drank out of a brown paper bag or slept in a box. Right? That was what an alcoholic was to me. And so there was this little disconnect on the definitions. But you say, are you an alcoholic? I'd say no. I have some problems. I had a lot of problems, believe it or not. But I didn't believe that I was an alcoholic. Today I'm absolutely convinced that I have this little thing called the phenomenon of craving. I call it my instant rearrangement of priorities. It just means that whatever was important to me before I started drinking isn't as important after I start drinking. And I can give you umpteen examples of that. Missing family events, missing tests, missing work, missing allergy shots that I was supposed to be taking, doctor's appointments. Why? Because I started drinking. I started drinking, there was an appointment to keep, and I didn't keep the appointment because after I started drinking, I continued drinking, because that's kind of how my drinking went, you know. I also got this mental obsession. Everybody believes that they're the worst kind of alcoholic. I think that I'm the worst kind of alcoholic, because I'm the part where the book describes, it says, if when you want to quit you can't, or if when you drink you have little or no control over the amount you drink, you're probably alcoholic, and I'm case number 2. Okay, quitting was not my problem. I could quit. I quit a day. I quit a week. I'm almost sure that I quit a month in there somewhere. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that I quit a month in there somewhere, right? But I'd always start again. I'm the kind of alcoholic that quits just long enough to give the people who love him hope. Just long enough to give him hope. Maybe this time he means it. Maybe this time he's serious. Maybe this time he'll make it. And then you know what I do? I drink. Because you know what? I quit for a month, and everybody else is happy that Dave's not drinking, except Dave. Dave is not happy. Dave feels, you know what the difference between a drinking drunk and dry drunk is for me is suicide and homicide. You know, I'm not drinking and everybody's happy, and I'm telling you I'm happy that I'm not drinking, but I swear to God, if one more person comes over and rubs my last nerve wrong, I'm going to shoot you. That's how I feel. I feel like my insides are on the outsides, and everybody is touching them, and everybody is poking them, you know? And I just, it's just killing. My poor mother, she's not an alcoholic. I've seen her drink like twice in my life. And one time she said, you quit a couple of times before you went to AA. And I said, yeah, this is after I was sober for years. And she said, why didn't you just stay quit? And I said, you want to know what it was like quitting drinking? And she said, yeah. I said, hold your breath. She went, I said, now hold it for 30 days. That's what it was like. It was like holding your breath for a month. You know, I was ready for a drink. And I would drink. And this cycle would go over and over. And it's like everybody understands when things are not going well, like when your dog dies or the girl leaves or you lose your job or whatever, jumping in the bottle. But I would quit and things would we do this all the time, things would get good. I'd be showing up to work, everybody know where I am, I have a little money, I'm not misbehaving, everybody's happy, right? And then I drink. And when I drink, I always go out of bounds, and I always screw it up, right? And that will baffle the non-alcoholics that are looking at you. And when you do that, they want an answer. They will go, why did you do that? And they want an answer. And if they wanted an answer, I had to come up with an answer. So I'd usually come up with my favorite, which was, well, it's you. You'd get off of my back if you'd stop doing this, if you'd stop doing that. If you had to deal with what I had to deal with, then you'd drink too, right? And I had to come up with an answer because I couldn't tell them the truth. Because you know what the truth was? I don't know. I don't know. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't want to do it. But I did it, and I don't know why. But you can't tell them that. Because if you tell them that, they'll put you in an I love me jacket and send you off for observation. So you got to come up with something. So I come up with something, and then I go, oh my God, that must be it. And I just doom myself to repeat the whole cycle over and over and over and over again. So back in January 1989, I got into some trouble. What happened was I got into some trouble, and if you were running with the crowd that I was running with and you got into trouble, no, that's a different one. I got into trouble with the law. I had a lot of extracurricular activities besides drinking. I wasn't very good at them, but I did them a lot. And I got into some trouble for that, and I was under investigation by the local constable, and I know that because he told me that. I'm going to get you. And I had some troubles, and so I had legal problems, and when I had legal problems, I was a tough guy, so I did what tough guys do. I ran home to Mom, and Mom hired a lawyer, and the lawyer took care of the legal troubles, you know, and my mother and father, I don't know if they ever read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, so that they did it just like it describes in working with others, and they said, we know a couple who have been sober a year in AA, and they said they'd be willing to talk to you if you wanted to talk to them. And although I wasn't very honest, I was kind of intuitive about what the right answer was. So I said, sure. My social calendar had cleared up significantly. So I said, sure. So I went and met John and Lisa, both of whom are still sober today. And John was the first alcoholic that I met. And John was smoking unfiltered Camel cigarettes and drinking black coffee. And I thought, this guy's getting well? Wow. Okay. And something happened that day, though. This is when I was 12-stepped. Something happened that day because up until that point, everybody had been telling me about my problem. Dave, you got a problem. Dave, when are you going to do something about your problem? Dave, you got to do something about your drinking. The problem was, if you had a problem with my drinking, you had a problem. You got a problem, you got a problem. Just leave me alone and let me do what I want to do. I'm not hurting nobody but me, which was the biggest lie that I told myself, right? It's funny. Years ago, I was talking for a guy's anniversary in D.C., and they had a wet drunk. I love wet drunks in meetings. And they set him at the table right up front, and I told that same story, and I said, if you got a problem with my drinking, you got a problem. He stood up and went, yeah! And that is what you call identification. So, that's not what happened that day. John didn't want to talk about my problem. He told me his story. He told me he was an alcoholic. He told me what happened to him. He told me what his drinking was like. And the best way I can describe it is he took away my last best excuse. Because my last best excuse, if you cornered me about my drinking, my last best excuse always was, you just don't understand. You don't know what it's like. And you know what? I have to tell you the truth. If you're non-alcoholic, you don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic. And if you don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic, I pray that you never do. But this guy, I could not, with all honesty, being right in my gut, look this guy in the eye and say, he understood. He knew exactly what it was like. And not only that, he'd walked a few miles further down the road than me. And at the end of that, he asked me 3 questions. He said, I hear you got a problem with booze. I said, yeah, I like to have a beer every once in a while. He said, I hear you have a problem with drugs. I smoke a joint every once in a while. Yeah. He said, tell me this, are you happy? You don't look happy. And I said, no, I don't even know what happiness is. And they took me to some meetings. And I didn't pick up a white chip. I wasn't a big joiner back then. And they took me to some meetings. You know what I remember about my first meetings? Was the laughter. Because I realized then that it had been a long time since I had laughed out loud about something. I mean, not like the laugh when you're all loaded and you're all giggles and laughing, or when your boss tells a joke and you're supposed to laugh. I mean, laughed. It had been forever. I don't know. Might have been entertaining to other people in AA, but I didn't think there was anything funny going or amusing going on in my life when I got here. It was all like drop dead, serious stuff. You know what I mean? So I remember the laughter. But I wasn't ready. I said, okay, I got a problem with this other stuff, but I'm not an alcoholic. I already told you why I thought that, because my definition of an alcoholic didn't fit me. And I went about 6 months, and I went back to school in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that day, and I never tapered off of drinking. I always tapered on, you know, which would usually, after a period of abstinence, would be like, you know, I'd have this little conversation with myself. You know, man, that was really messed up, wasn't it? Oh, that was bad. That was the worst it's ever been. Yeah, I'm glad that's over. Yeah, me too. I'm really glad that's over. Well, everything's cool now, right? Yeah, everything's going pretty good. It's all good, you know. So a couple of beers wouldn't hurt, right? Yeah, I don't know. I guess a couple of beers wouldn't hurt, you know. And I'd go and I'd drink it, you know. And the SWAT team didn't show up, and, you know, nobody serving a subpoena, and, you know, nobody was mad at me. So, okay, it's all good, you know. So it took me about a week, you know, boom, right back up to where I was. So I was all ramped up. And that day, I don't know why, I was back in the same town where I got in trouble, same school, not with the same people, but I was still there, if you know what I mean when I say that. And I came home that day at about 12:30 in the afternoon. I popped open a beer. I drank half of that Coors all in one gulp. And I won't call it an audible voice, but a thought so loud it was crystal clear. I'll never forget it. Popped up and said, "There's nothing different." See, because the only kind of hope there is for a periodic drunk like me is it's going to be different this time. It's going to be different this winter. It's going to be different this summer. It's going to be different when I get home. It's going to be different when I get back to school. It's going to be different when I get a job. It's going to be different when I get rid of this job. It's always somehow, some way, I'm going to get all the pieces right out there, and I tell you so that I don't have to do what I'm doing. And I didn't even know what the truth was, because the truth is, if I can get all the pieces in place, I can drink like I need to drink, right? And this voice popped up and said, "There's nothing different." And this is what we call a moment of clarity. For the once in my life, I knew I was headed straight back down the same road that I just came from. And for once in my life, I didn't want to go. And I didn't want to take the trip. And I didn't, that was my last drink, was half a Coors. And I didn't drink the rest of it. And I went on my day. An hour later, I'm walking down the street, and I ran into a guy that I had partied with the year before, and he had just disappeared off the face of the planet. And this is what I was starting to say. If you ran with the crowd that I ran with and you disappeared, it only meant one of three things. Either you went to jail, you went to treatment, or you were dead. And if he went to jail or he was dead, I would have known about it. Nobody knew what happened to this guy. Here he comes walking down the street, and I grabbed him by the arm, and I said, "Philip, are you in AA?" This is the same guy that after I came back from first year Judish, we were getting high and drinking beers in his room, and he looked at me in the face and said, "Dave, I think I have a problem with drugs and alcohol. What do you think?" And I said, "Philip, I drink way more than you do, and I don't have a problem, so how could you have a problem?" Giving him my best spirituality I had right at that time. Anyway, he disappeared shortly after that. Here he comes down the street. I grab him by the arm and go, "Philip, are you in AA?" And he said, "Yeah, Dave, I am in AA." And I said, "Will you take me to a meeting?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll take you to a meeting tonight. I'll pick you up at 7:30. Tell me where to get you." And I told him where to get me, and he did. I don't remember. I might have given him my phone number, but he didn't give me his phone number, and that's going to become significant in a minute, because that was at 1:30 in the afternoon. I was just scared enough to ask someone to take me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's amazing what the alcoholic mind can do with 6 hours, because 6 hours later, I had deduced that I had grossly overreacted to this situation. It is not that bad. And I swear to this day, if I had his phone number, I would have called him and said anything. I got to do homework. I got to walk the dog. I got to paint my toenails. Anything to get out of that AA meeting. But I didn't have his phone number, and he showed up at 7:30 and got me, and we went to what I call my first meeting of AA. And that wasn't the first one I've been to, but I call it my first meeting. Monday night JPA in Charlottesville, Virginia. And there's still people sober in Charlottesville today that will tell you all of this story. I didn't hear anything that was said. It was like Greek foreign language to me. I don't know what you guys were talking about. You know, I was already back in my, I don't even think this is a problem. But three things happened at that meeting. One was I got a white chip, because when they called for a white chip, Philip went like this in my ribs, and that was my signal, and so I got up and got a white chip. And I don't know if that night, if they were like bored or feeling particularly generous, but they asked me if I wanted to say something when I picked up my white chip. And people who know me, you can go talk to people in my group, and people who know me will tell you and verify that I don't know a whole lot, but there's never been a time in my life that I didn't have something to say. So what I said when I picked up my white chip was, I am not an alcoholic. This is purely a precautionary measure, just in case. And they said, keep coming back, you know. And then Philip said, you see that guy over there? I said, yeah. He said, go ask him to be your sponsor. I kind of knew what the sponsor thing was from John and Lisa, and so I wanted her to say, you be my sponsor? And he said, yeah. He said, do you have a big book? I said, no. He said, do you have $5? I said, no. I lied. I didn't want to put any money into this thing. I didn't want to be here. I have like this secret theory, right? That if everybody who got a big book given to them or bought for them on their first meeting or when they were new in AA, if every one of us sent in like our $5, $8, or $10 to GSO at one time, they'd have so much money, they'd have a problem. They would have so much money there. So he bought me my first big book. And he took me to some meetings the first week. And my first 30 days, I went to some meetings. I don't know how many meetings I went to. Because I didn't listen to anything, because I'll tell you why, because you don't really need to listen if you're not really an alcoholic, right? And you don't really need to go to a meeting every day if you're not really an alcoholic. And I thought, I've put all this other stuff behind me, booze is no problem. I only remembered later that I had a girlfriend at that time, and we went out to dinner, and she ordered a beer, and I sat on my hands during that dinner. If I didn't have a fork or a knife in my hand, I sat on my hands, because that beer had the gravitational pull of the sun. I'm telling you, like, no, do whatever you want. That don't bother me. That's all good. You know, so 30 days later, I went to pick up my 30-day chip, and I went to a meeting, and I picked up my 30-day chip, still have it, blue poker chip. And Big Tom H comes up and gives me a hug and says, congratulations. And I looked at him straight in the eye, and I said, I'm going to drink. Which was news to me, right? They write a chapter about me. They hide it in the back. It's called A Vision for You. It talks about the boy whistling in the dark. Oh, yeah, I love being sober. This is great. I mean, I know where I am when I wake up in the morning and where my car is, and everything's wonderful. Oh, my God. It had been a month. I was so dry, I was a fire hazard. I needed a drink. Bad. All of a sudden, when I said, and I didn't even know that, but when I said it, all of a sudden, like it hit me, like I'm not going to make it. And then I thought, I wish I hadn't have told him, because now I'm going to have to listen to every AA slogan ever invented, like you don't leave before the miracle happens, and one day at a time. And I thought I would just puke on his shoes if he gave me that. He didn't say any of that. He said, no, you're not. You're coming with us. Still trying to figure out what step that is. But that's what he said. He said, you're coming with us. And I said, the smartest thing I've ever said in AA, up to and including tonight, the smartest thing I've ever said in AA. I said, okay. Okay. See, because when I was out there drinking, I was really bad at a lot of things, but I was really good at two things. I was very, very good at just getting by. I mean, just barely getting by. Like leaving a little skin behind, but making it kind of getting by, you know? Get in a jam, give me 2 beers, I'll figure this out, you know? And I was a champion plan comer upper with her, right? And, oh, here's my identification. I'm a champion plan comer upper with her. And my plan that night was to go to the AA meeting and get my 30-day chip and meet the blonde at the keg party afterwards, telling myself that I was going to drink ginger ale, right? And I said, okay, and I stepped the blonde at the keg party and went with them, and we went and got pizza and watched a couple of movies, and one of them dropped me off that night, and I went to bed, and when I woke up the next morning, I was still sober. And the reason that I tell you that story is, I didn't know it then, but I know it now, that is the story of my recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because that was the first time in a long, long time that I put my own idea aside, and I call it whatever you want, direction, suggestion. I followed you guys. I put my own plan aside, I followed you guys, and I stayed sober when I knew that I was going to get drunk. And that's the story of my recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. The results were nil until we let go of our old ideas, absolutely. And all my old ideas are not just the ones that I walked in here with. I find them all the time, and I develop them all the time, you know. But I had to get what you guys have. I had to follow what you guys were doing. Now is the part where I'm supposed to say, and then my sponsor and I sat down and opened the book, and I did the 12 steps, and I had a spiritual awakening. But here's another truth I'll tell you. Everybody in AA is not getting well. I can tell you that because I was one of them. The best way I can describe myself the next couple of years in Alcoholics Anonymous is, girls, I was the one that your sponsor pointed at and said, stay away from him. All right? It goes back to what my sponsor told me. What do you get when you sober up a drunken horse thief? A sober horse thief, you know? It's not for sponsors trying. I remember sitting with a sponsor and going on, being a year and a half. You know, I'm making your coffee, I'm setting up your chairs, and my life stinks. What's the deal? And he goes, maybe we should talk about that third step. And I literally said, no, that can't be it. You know, I've also heard it said, like, what is a better definition of insanity than joining a 12-step program and not doing the 12 steps? But I know none of you are like this. But when I was out there drinking and somebody said, here, drink this, I went, okay. They said, here, smoke this. And I said, okay. They said, here, take a couple of these. And I said, okay. What do those do to you, you know? I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and you guys go, get a sponsor, get a home group, and do the steps. And I went, whoa. I don't want to make any rash decisions here. I think I need to check this thing out first. It's really weird because rash decisions is about the only kind I've been making for years in my life. But I'm going to err on the cautious side when it comes to a spiritual solution. So anyway, I was not one of the ones. I was one of the ones watching everybody around me get well, was what I was. And then when I was 3 years sober, I was living in Richmond. I was enjoying the gifts of step nun. If you're not familiar with it, it's nothing. And a lot of things were happening. The people that I was hanging out with in AA were dropping like flies. They were all getting drunk. One girl tried to commit suicide, and I was pretty much waiting for my turn to come around. To go back out the door. And I went to a 5:30 speakers meeting, and there was a guy there. Best of my knowledge, he had never been to that meeting before. Best of my knowledge, he has never been to that meeting since, but he was there that day, and he talked about a solution. He was one of those guys, he called himself a recovered alcoholic. Ooh, one of those guys, yeah. He explained that to me later. He said, if you get shot and you don't die, you're going to go to the hospital, doctor's going to sit you up 3 or 4 days later or whatever. You are going to be declared a recovered gunshot victim, but you are not bulletproof. Recovered is not cured. Those are two different things, but there is such a place as recovered. And he talked about a solution. And maybe it wasn't so much what he said as I looked in his eye, and this guy believed what he was selling. I mean, he really believed it. There was something in his eyes. And so I sidled up to him after the meeting, and I said, I was thinking about brushing up on the steps a little bit. And I'll warn you, if you ask one of these bleeding blue guys to be your sponsor, you tell them you want to do the steps, they think you mean it. So that Saturday, I was sitting at that picnic bench outside a treatment center where I went to the AA meeting with him, taking the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous and becoming convinced in my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, getting on my knees and taking the third step prayer, which is not apparently a one-time event. And taking that third step prayer and sent off to start my inventory. And it took me to do my 4-step inventory, took me, 13 days and 13 days and 14 hours of procrastination and 8 hours of writing. And I got it done. And then, I don't know about you, but I had a polite sponsor. A polite sponsor is when we were riding in the car, me with a flashlight, him driving, is when you're pouring your heart out to him and telling him your deepest, darkest secrets. When you tell him your worst stuff, he yawns. How many times? I had another sponsor for 16 years, and he looked at me and said, is there a word for it in the dictionary? And I said, yes. He said, then you didn't do it first. So as a matter of fact, so many people did it, they had to make a word for it. You're not very original. No credit, no credit. So we did that, and I went out and I started making amends, and I started taking people to meetings, and I started asking people if they wanted to go to meetings. I started kidnapping people to meetings, and I started working with other alcoholics, and something happened. The first thing that happened was I woke up one day and realized that I hadn't thought about drinking in a long, long time. And that had never happened. Because if I wasn't thinking about drinking, I was thinking about not drinking. And I just hadn't thought about it, period, at all. You know, today, when about the only time I think about drinking is when I'm in an AA meeting and we're talking about drinking. Luckily, I'm in an AA meeting when it happens, right? It was just removed. It was gone, you know. And my life became something that I wanted. That never happened before, you know. I always wanted your car, I wanted your job, I wanted your girl, I wanted your stuff. I woke up and I wanted what I had. And that I was okay. You know that moment when you call your sponsor and you go, something's wrong. And they go, why? What's going on? And you go, nothing. Nothing's going on. It's weird. But it's great, you know. I had a spiritual awakening. Something inside of me changed, and as a result of that process, I will never be the same man again. I did not sprout a pair of wings and a halo at any point during this, nor will I ever. But I'm not the same man that walked in here, right? As a result of that process, the grace of God entered my life and exists in my life every day to the extent that I allow it, right? Every day to the extent that I invite it in. So right before that, I had just finished school, and it was kind of the recession, so I joined the Peace Corps, and I went off to South America, to Ecuador for a year and a half, to a little town called Sequisili in the middle of the mountains. I didn't know if there'd be AA there when I got there, but my sponsor said, God's portable, and he's light. He won't take up too much of your luggage. Take him with you. So I took him with me. My sponsor also told me something that has helped me my entire life, and that is, he said, Dave, there will be times when you can't get what you need, but there will never be a time when you can't do something for somebody else. And I have found it to be absolutely true, and I have found it to save my bacon many, many times. And so I set out to be of service to the people around me, to trust God and have that communication with God. And where I wound up was in this little town. And the big town down the road, there was a group of Alcoholics Anonymous. It had been there for 3 years, Grupo Siempre Unidos de Latacunga, Ecuador. There were no English-speaking meetings. I've forgotten all my Spanish. Please don't quiz me afterwards. But all the meetings were in Spanish. I was a member of that group for a year and a half. There were 6 of us. We went to the hospital. We 12-step wet drunks. But, you know, I could have got up and told any of their stories. They could have got up and told mine. You know, we were a group. We stayed sober together. And I participated more in Alcoholics Anonymous there than I ever had been before. I became a part of Alcoholics Anonymous in service, in sponsorship, in being a member of a group and taking responsibility. And the first time I was there, they have coffee after the meeting. It's like a little 5 or 10 minute thing afterwards, and we were sitting around. Of course, I'm the novelty because, you know, I'm from the United States. And we talked for about 5 minutes, and this 53-year-old man looks at me and says, will you listen to my fifth step? And I said, you know, I don't speak very good English. And he said, I know. Will you listen to my fifth step? I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But, you know, I said, okay, let's do the deal. I'd just been through the steps with my sponsor, and I got a Spanish big book and an English big book. You know, because if you're going to be a sponsor, you got to be able to know how to pronounce the big words, like anonimidad, you know, and stuff, you know. So, and we did the steps. We did the steps, and he went back and made amends. He started going back and making amends all the way back to grades. 53-year-old man, all the way back to grade school, making amends. At least one of his amends was in grade school. And one day, I was walking through the place. He was a taxi driver, and one day I was walking through the plaza, and I was all consumed with me and what's going on with me and this project I was trying to do and blah, 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 and pretty much had my head down walking to the bus. And I heard somebody laughing, and I looked up, and it was him. This guy, when you met him, like, if he would have smiled, his face would have broken. He was so serious, you know? And this guy's over at the taxi stand with his head kicked back, laughing, telling jokes with his taxi buddies. And it was like that, man. I got this feeling like I never drank, smoked, or snorted anything that made me feel that good. I call it the juice. I mean, working. I don't get people sober. I don't keep people sober. I don't get people drunk. But when I try to help another alcoholic. What I do get, sometimes, if I'm lucky, I get a seat on the 50-yard line to watch God happen to another human being. And that's a show, man, you do not want to miss. It's the most beautiful show on earth, you know, and I've had the privilege of watching it a number of times in here. I got hooked on working with others. You know, I also became a big fish in a little pond, and so I became so heavenly, I was of no earthly good. I kind of became a big shot in my own mind because everybody, you know, ever thought you were important because you're an American, you know, and all this stuff. I mean, we were doing lots of fun stuff, like 8 radio shows. It was like there in Ecuador in, you know, the 1990s was like the 1940s in the United States. They were just trying to get the word out that AA existed, that there was a solution. That we were doing radio shows, we were doing public meetings, we were doing all this stuff. And I got a little important. I started smoking again, not that that has anything to do with alcoholism, but I started smoking again, and then I came back to the United States. I was told I was going to have culture shock. I didn't believe I was going to have culture shock. I smoked my last cigarette walking onto the plane, didn't tell anybody back home that I started smoking. Smoked my last cigarette, threw it down, got on the plane. I wasn't even going to tell anybody. Didn't go to meetings when I got back because, you know, they didn't do the meetings right here anymore, you know, after I'd been over there. You know, here's a clue. If you ever move around, is wherever you move, it doesn't matter where, they don't do it right. The most annoying part of that is they're staying sober anyway. They don't even know they're doing it wrong, and they're staying sober. Get over it. So I didn't go to meetings, and I started working the steps backward, and I pretty much had a nervous breakdown. I was engaged to be married. That broke up in, you know, about a 5-minute conversation. That broke up, and I was in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I had to drive back to Northern Virginia, and I was in a lot of pain. And you know, I think our book says that once you've had a spirit, you know, there will come a day. Why should we take the third step? Why should I have a power greater than myself? And that is because the day will come, no matter how much I can stay sober on my own willpower, the day will come that the only thing that will stand between me and a drink is a God of my understanding. And I better have one when that day happens. And I have now stood at that door 3 times in the past almost 28 years. And this was the first one. And I said a prayer when I got in that car because I wanted to drink. Ever since I took that first step, I've never had that thought of, oh, I'll go out and have a couple and it'll be okay. No, I know exactly what happens when I drink. Sad and tragic things. I am not the one that goes down to Applebee's and networks. You know, that's not me. That's not my kind of drinking. That's not where I wind up. I don't even get headline worthy. Like none of that I don't wake up out of blackouts in Paris. I don't do stuff like that. Sad and tragic. That's it. That's what I get is sad and tragic. Incomprehensible demoralization. You know what's funny? I've gone through the book, I don't know, with hundreds of guys. And regardless of education, background, origin, any of that stuff, even native language, I've never had to explain that phrase to another alcoholic. Incomprehensible demoralization. You know what that is? Yes, we know what that is. Yes, we do. So that's what I get. I've never doubted that. So I said a prayer. I said, God, do not let this car pass go. Do not collect $200 because if I stop, I'm stopping at 7-Eleven and getting a 12-pack. And I made it home, and I called my sponsor, and I called my spiritual advisor, and nobody picked the phone up. And I remembered the week before at a meeting, a guy had been asking for people to take a meeting into the jail, Alexandria Detention Center. And I found that guy's card, and I called him because one of the things that my sponsor drilled into me from the beginning was when all else fails, work with another alcoholic. And I was in a lot of pain, and I needed to be out of pain. And so I called that guy, and I said, when are you going in? And he said, tomorrow night. And I said, who's going in tonight? And he said, whoa, it doesn't happen like that. You know, got to call your information in and stuff. And so I was in there Monday night, and I wound up taking over that meeting from that guy and chairing it for 3 years. And those guys saved my life. Those guys in that jail literally saved my life. They didn't know that, but they did, you know. I've had so many adventures and trials and tribulations. I've had 5-year menopause in sobriety. You know, when I was 7 years sober, boy meets girl on AA campus, and I got married, and my son was born on my 8th anniversary, which I think was appropriate. From then on, that day wasn't Dave's anniversary anymore. It was Will's birthday, you know, and it still is Will's birthday. And we had a daughter who I'm hoping and praying that one day she uses her powers for good in the world. But they're amazing kids. I love them very much. You know, and when I was, geez, it was 8 years, so when I was about, 17, 18 years sober, my life looked like, I mean, I had a house in the suburbs, 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, a wife, a minivan, a truck, and I swear to God, a white picket fence around the yard. I mean, it was like paint a picture, of whatever the American dream or American family or whatever it is, and that's what it looked like on the outside. That's what it looked like. It's not that everything was great on the inside, and that came to an end. That had to come to an end, and I got divorced right around my 20th anniversary, and that was a huge blow. That was a huge blow, especially to a guy that has an ego like me. And luckily we survived that. And the ramifications of that are still coming. There's 2 times in my life. We talk about turning your will and your life over to the care of God. Ever since I took that 3rd step prayer, my process has usually been 99% of the time, I'm not consciously holding something back from God. I just don't know I haven't let go of it yet. Until it hurts, and then it hurts, and I go, oh, sorry, forgot this one, Only twice in my sobriety did I make a conscious decision, like, I'm not asking. I'm not asking. My wife said, I want to get separated, and I said, I got this one. I got this one. I know exactly how this one's going to go down, And we all live, but the ramifications of that I'm still feeling the ramifications of that today, But we lived, and we moved on, but it was a very, very, very painful period. And you know what happened to me? I went a little bit crazy, probably would be the way to put it. And what happened was I was extremely unhappy. I was depressed. I was not feeling good. I was still active in Alcoholics Anonymous, doing all the things that we do. And I set out to recreate Dave in Dave's image. I figured I need a changeover, and I set out to recreate Dave in Dave's image. In other words, if I have the right job, and I make the right amount of money, and people respect me, and I have the right car, and I have the right girl by my side, the one that everybody else wants by their side, and I have all this, if I line all this, I fell into this little trap that I fall into occasionally, which is, if I get all these things, then I'll be happy, right? And I hung my happiness on things out there. I hung my happiness on external things that weren't even real and weren't sustainable. And where I wound up after that was 2 years later sitting on a rock in the middle of the Potomac River reading a 5th step to a sponsor and saying, you know what's foremost on my mind? I've done all this stuff in AA, and what has AA done for me? And that is not a fun place to be. Not at all. And I had to surrender again. I had to surrender one more time, surrender my ideas, because I'm always in pursuit of that thing. I describe myself as an alcoholic I have a severe case of alcoholic ADD, right? I mean, well, I want to walk the spiritual path, but there are bright and shiny things out there, right? Spiritual path. Oh, look at that. Spiritual path. Whoa, what's that one, I'm just like, I'm very distractible, and I get off on these little paths, and I wind up unhappy, and then I go, what happened? What happened? I was so happy. Everything was going so well. Oh, my God, I've learned so much, but not nearly enough at the same time, I did the best I could. I had to surrender again. I had to surrender to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had to surrender to a God that I don't particularly understand, but who I know, who I believe and trust loves me. And just trust and get through. And I'm very fortunate in a lot of ways that my kids are okay, and it's been in a lot of ways a painful experience, but it's brought me to where I am today. And I'm very happy that I am where I am today. I met Elaine, and she is my true soulmate, and I could not be happier. And she's taught me how to have an adult relationship. I swear to God. Like the first time something happened, we sat down and had a discussion, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is what adults do. I talk about stuff and handle stuff, and it's wonderful, but over the past year, both the best thing that's ever happened to me, we're engaged, going to get married at the end of this year, so we got engaged to be married, and so the best thing that's ever happened to me is happening to me, and one of the hardest things that's ever happened to me is happening to me. You know, when we got engaged, my 16-year-old daughter like lost her mind, basically, and things went south real quick with her and I, and it's been very difficult. It's been very, very, very difficult. My son turned 18 and said, "Thanks, see you later." I haven't talked to him in like a year and a half, and my daughter was headed out the door too, and it's been extremely difficult to deal with. And I've had to learn to have a lot more patience than I ever possibly thought I maybe could ever have. And I've had to learn. I've had to learn about strength, you know. I've had to learn that there is patience, love, tolerance, and acceptance. But it is also my job to parent my kids, you know. And it's been something that I've had to learn at a very late stage in life, you know, to try and set an example for them, and to have a whole lot of trust, you know, because I got, you know, when I told my sponsor we were getting divorced, this was back at the divorce, he said a couple of things to me. The first thing he said was, "Dave, for you, being right is going to get very, very expensive," because he knew how I was. And he also said, "Don't indulge your feelings," right? And I remember that because I've indulged my feelings on this one, on what's going on with my daughter, and where it got me was about 3 months ago, back around July 4th, at Sunday night at 2 o'clock in the morning, in bed going, "You know what, I'm just going to drink. I'm just going to drink." And I don't mean like thinking about drinking, like I made a decision to go drink. Like I'm not going to make it. I'm just not going to make it. It's over. I'm going tomorrow. And I started driving to my job the next day, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to fall into this little trap in my mind, which is I can't tell, this is how the alcoholic ego works. I can't tell anybody that this is what's going on with me because, God, I've been sober for 27 years, and I'm the old timer in my group, and people rely on me, so you can't tell people that you're thinking about drinking. And I thought, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going back out the door on my pride, basically, because I won't open my mouth and say what's really going on. And I called a guy in my group, Mike, who knows, he and I are very, very tight, and he knows almost everything that's going on with me. And I said, "This is what's going on." And he said, "Okay, are you going to a meeting?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to a meeting." And I went to a meeting that night on a Monday, and I went to my home group on Tuesday night, and I let fly, man. I let fly. I decided to drink. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm still feeling like it. And you know what? I am just another alcoholic. You know what? You know what the highest rank you get in Alcoholics Anonymous is? Alcoholic. That's it. Sober. Yeah, I'm 27 years sober, and I'm an alcoholic, right? This happens to me. And man, I shared that, and it was like 1,000 tons came off of my shoulders. You know, just like, why couldn't I just say that, you know? I got to be honest with the people who love me and the people who are around me. I'm not a big vomiter. I don't go to meeting after meeting and vomit everything that's going on with me. But if I can't go to my home group and be honest with those guys and the guys who make up a part of my sobriety and my sober life, then I am doomed. Because now I'm not practicing we, I'm practicing I. I can't tell them because of this. I can't, you know, no, we. I don't stay sober by myself. I only stay sober with you guys, you know. I skipped an important part of my story, and I think it's worth telling, and that is when my sponsor and I went through the steps, we came to this thing. It's after what the 12 steps that they read. It's called the A, B's, and C's. And he said, "Do you believe that you're an alcoholic of the type described in this book?" And I said, "Yes, without a doubt." He said, "Do you believe there's any human power that can relieve your alcoholism?" And I said, "No, since for that first 3 years in AA, I had been trying to relieve my alcoholism. I'd been relieved of alcohol, but I was trying to relieve my alcoholism, and it failed." I could say, no. He said, "Do you believe that God can and will?" And I said, "Yes." And I told him my first lie. I told him yes because I knew the right answer was yes. I'd been around long enough to know that. But it was a lie because what I really thought was I was just damaged goods. I thought I was just damaged goods. Like if you took a knife and you cut me from my Adam's apple to my belly button and opened me up, you would find nothing but black, dead, dry rot inside. And I wasn't sure that God wanted someone like that back. I'd gone too far, seen too much, had done too much, and you really don't want to know what goes on up in here. Why would God want someone like me? Oh, he'd do it for you, and he'd do it for you, not me. Well, my sponsor saved me with the next question. He said, are you willing to follow through with the program of action that is outlined in this book? And I said, yes. Having no clue what I was in for, I said, yes, you know. And the way I describe it is, all I had to do was give God a shot. That's it, you know, because this whole believe part, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. And in the Southern Baptist Church, you don't believe things, you believe things. You know what I mean? There's like a difference. I did not believe that God would restore me to sanity and take care of my alcoholism. But all I had to do was give him a shot. All I had to do was make a start, you know. And I know that there is a God today. I know there's one that loves me. If your God doesn't love you, you might want to get another one. It's hard to stay sober with one who doesn't like you or is out to get you. My God likes me, and my God wants good things for me. And I'm very fond. The thing that tripped me out more than anything was when I realized that God didn't love me any more the day after I walked into AA than he did the day before I walked into AA. You know, my friend Bill, who lives in Vegas now, is fond of saying, God doesn't care whether I'm drunk or sober. God just cares. Period. End of story. You know? And I don't know about you, and I don't know why, but for some reason I feel closest to my God when I'm with you. And so I stay with you guys. I've done everything you can do wrong in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done it, except quit. I've never quit. I had this other sponsor, and he said, Dave, AA is a lot like breathing. You don't need to do it perfectly, but it's strongly recommended that you do it regularly. So I just do it regular instead of perfect. Again, thank you for having me up. Thank you for asking me to speak.
Oh, that was pretty epic. Let's thank Dave one more time, please. Please take a moment to thank him at the end of the meeting. Form a line. He comes all the way from Virginia just for us. That's pretty special. We have no smoking on church property. There's flyers back there. Don't forget our sister group is a Big Book study Thursdays. If you like to come over and like to read that big book, it helps a lot. If you're willing, help us finish that food. Next week we have Jimmy A coming out from the Neptune group. Beg, borrow, and steal to be here. It's going to be a party again. We've got a nice way of closing. If you care to join us, and thank you for coming.